that's me. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll call the meeting to order. Starting with the roll call, June Donenfeld from Bristol.
Here.
Christian Coates from South Bristol. Wayne Parlin from Jefferson.
Here.
Matt Bennett from Middleborough.
Here.
All here. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Either or.
Oh, either or.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any adjustments to the agenda?
None that I have.
So we open it up for public comment.
There's a list right there if you want to grab the clipboard so you'll know who.
Question, you got Zoom on, TV's on.
It's on. It's recording.
Okay.
We're not going through that.
Okay.
We're recording to the cloud.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm Becky Cooper, member of the Bristol School Committee, and I'm speaking on behalf of the entire committee who unanimously wish to voice our support for the budget in its original form, because we feel that that would enable the central office to carry out its responsibilities to all the schools in the AOS and to meet its needs fiscally, educationally, legally, and sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Peter? Peter? Gap?
David,
David?
no comment.
All right, the sign-in sheet, people signing just because I thought it was a sign-in sheet.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's for people who wanted public comment, so.
That's my bad. Raise your hand.
So, yeah, just,
I think I had everybody.
that's a big one. Just raise your hands then, I guess, and Christian can call upon you.
Who else? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my name is Phyllis Leck. I'm a 40-year resident of Bristol, and my concern is for the parents today that are struggling to raise a family. Their needs to feed, clothe, and health care and have a life here. And this is a maximum expenditure in our budget for the town. Now, with the Maine state taking a 1% payroll tax out June 1st, this is one more hit for our families with children. The school budget that you will be voting on tonight for AOS 93 should reflect this in mind. I feel you should not burden the taxpayers with more demands on their income. You feel the children need more services, and I feel they need more family time, civic duties, and sports. So this is a vicious cycle of providing enough income to meet all the expenses put upon families and taxpayers. I thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Yeah, I'm Chuck Hanson. I'm also from Bristol. This budget is an admin budget, not a school budget. Okay, so and the concern is, my concern is financial. We have a 11% reduction in budget with 38 less students. So it's less students, more money. And we have only 31% less line items in the budget, so there's less work. When I'm looking at, okay, what I'm concerned is the taxes going down, going to the big town. Okay. As I read the NGOE requirement, that there should be, also it should be in the warrant, a revenue line, just like we have in our town budgets for the school. Okay. And but the concern I have there is the audits. I've been hearing for the last 3 or 4 months, hey, working on it. There's no money left in the FY24 budget for your audit, the project, what you give me, okay, it's all been expended, that's what you can't overspend. There's only about 2K left in
It's not true. 600 in which budget?
the FY23
Oh, AOS. Okay.
AOS budget. Okay. There's no money left in that one, there's about 2K left. So is the auditor still working? Do you pay him, or do you pay a fixed price for a product, which we don't have? We're overdue. State requires, both budgets should be given to the state right now.
Public comment, not public questioning.
Correct.
Well, all right, so we're not gonna address this, it's not on.
Unless I'm asked to. It's very.
No, that-
Okay.
I defer to the chair.
Difficult. Okay,
It's not.
and we need to have. Okay. Well, it's important, unless you wanna start talking, revenue to, the unobligated fund balances to apply to the revenue buy down, that's our money. Unobligated balances, our money here, and any of you have to be residents. So,
Thanks for your comments, Chuck.
I'm concerned about the audit, I'm concerned about fund balance forward, okay, and not identifying any of that. We haven't done that for 2-3 years now.
So,
Noted.
yeah, a comment only if you ask me to.
Go ahead.
The FY23 audits and the FY24 audits are in process with the groups. You can refer to an article in the Bangor Daily News that was published in late November. I have it open here, I was just showing that. It talks about the fact that public auditors in the state of Maine is such a shortage that some towns are still trying to get caught up from 21. I'll tell you about the reasons why. One, the ESSER, the emergency relief money delivered for 3 years during the COVID period, doubled the number of audits that actually have to get done. There is not, for all the school audits, the town audits that receive this money, they still have to do the municipal audit, then they have to do what's called a single audit, which is a federal audit on the federal money. So the workload for public auditors doubled for the last few years since 2020. Okay, and that money is still being received is in this current year. We were allowed to expend it through September 30th. So through the year we're currently in, we audit this year, there's going to be 2 audits needed. Okay, and in addition, that broke a lot of the auditing firms that were doing public audits in the state of Maine, and they left. The company I was using in Camden a few years ago just up and said, we can't take on as many clients, we're done, and they left Camden. And I put out an RFP for new auditors for Camden, got 0 submissions in response to that sent in, and we had to go out and use some connections to a member of the school committee to beg somebody to do the audits there. Third, I was told by those folks, the auditors, about the problems they were having, which was that they were always been dependent on a fresh crop of young kids coming out of college who want to spend a couple of years working long hours doing audits. And those kids don't come stay in Maine anymore. They'll leave it. That's why we have a labor shortage. And the labor shortage of young college graduates in Maine is significant right now. And finally, the University of Maine shut down their master's degree in public administration 10 years ago and just aren't producing the people who are going to, kind of do this work in Maine. You can read about it in the newspapers. You need to understand it. You can't get mad at the Brewer family who are doing all these audits for all these towns, because I watch them work. When they come into our office, they say, how early can we get there? And I say 7, is when we open. They say, can we get in a little earlier? And they keep us there until dark. Well, they're all at the table working for days on end. I just left the meeting with Fred Brewer for a few hours. They are working hard on these things. And they have the data that they need to do it, and they're crunching it. But they're doing it for all the towns and all the schools twice as much as they used to with less people. And that is just a matter of fact. You can read about it. And then the second thing, fund balance forward. In FY24 in the central office, we stayed in the black. No, we haven't paid the $7,000 for the audit, and only $2,000 there, but in the general fund on that year. But there's plenty in the undesignated funds to cover that $5,000 difference, and that's something that we're all aware of. That the undesignated balance fund, which I review with the auditors pretty regularly and keep an eye on, and they advise me on what to roll forward based on what we're seeing. whether the audit's been done or not, is something that is watched. And unfortunately, Chuck, it's not, it's not your money. Once you've appropriated it to the school committees to choose what to do.
Undesignated is that one.
Undesignated balances that have been appropriated by the taxpayers for the school committee by statute and are the responsibility of the school committee to decide what to do. Now, in an MSU, municipal school unit, they work with the select board because they are a committee of the town. But it doesn't just get turned back over to individuals. It gets decided by the town, with the select board and the school committee, how to allocate that. And that's what is discussed at the town budget committees and with the select board. And they will do that, and they have been doing that.
Thanks for that explanation, Peter.
So I can get a chance, the question I go to, do I get a chance now at the town budget committee to add money? We've never done that before.
I don't understand how you add.
You saying it.
Add money at the town budget committee. I'm not following each other.
No. You have fund balance, you have it there. And there's NDOE has a requirement to stay within 5% of total budget carryover. But also, it's a statutory requirement that you've got to submit the NDOE.
This isn't an agenda item either.
What have they said? Are they silent?
All right, Chuck, we're getting into questions instead of comments, so let's hold it. Let's put a pin in it there, okay?
All right. We'll argue this again.
Okay. Any other public comment? Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Didn't see you back there.
I'm reading kids' book. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm the chair of the South Bristol School Board. I'm just representing myself, though. I work closely with central office, the business office, and I kind of wanted to reiterate what Wayne had said at the last meeting, because I think that with Todd being a new superintendent and with the business office back being staffed, that we need to give this a year at the current staffing levels so they can really get their feet under them and move forward and see what potential efficiencies they can come up with for next year. I know that kind of sounds like we're kicking it down the road, but I feel strongly that that's what I need as board chair, is to have a solid central office so they can serve my school along with the other 3 schools. And I just wanted to kind of give a vote of confidence in the staffing that we have, because I think it is important for this year.
Thank you. Any other
There
public
was
comment?
somebody back there.
John Harris, South Bristol. Is it permissible to ask a question? I'm sorry I wasn't at previous meetings.
I think it's just a comment.
It's a comment. I would say that seems like what I read in the paper is a new formula is pretty fair, splitting it between the schools. But I question why South Bristol's share has gone up 185%.
Should we explain that?
You can reach out to the central office. Just call, send your question to us,
Or John, we can catch up.
or after this meeting.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Richard Powell. I'd just like to say that I do believe that we need to give this new committee and superintendent a chance to work this out. I have a lot more confidence in the present members of this committee and administration than I've had in the past. Now that the other towns are gone, we have a different superintendent. I have a lot more faith in the integrity of the process. And I really think we should support them and let them go with it.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the action on our minutes from the December 18th, 2024 public budget meeting vote.
So move. Second.
So moved and seconded. Thanks.
Vote.
Vote.
Or discussion.
Oh, right, we have to vote.
You have to vote.
Yes.
All those in favor?
The next one's a communication correspondence, just making the board aware of a resignation that we had at central office.
We have the letter of resignation from
Myra.
Myra Lane.
Lane.
You speak up, please.
Do we have that?
I don't know if there's a copy of anything. I can get you one if there isn't.
The gentleman in the back couldn't hear.
We had a letter of resignation. We had a letter of resignation from our payroll and human resources clerk, Myra Lane. We don't go.
You might want to thank her for her service to the district, and
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Myra, if you're watching. The vote on the AOS 93 fiscal year 26 budget was held on December 18th, 2024, and that budget failed to pass. The next meeting of the AOS board will be held on January 14th, 2025 at Noblesboro Central School at 6 p.m. There will be a special board meeting on January 22nd at 5:30 p.m. at the Noblesboro Central School. And the next AOS 93 public budget meeting on January 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Noblesboro Central School will be the
public vote.
public vote.
Yep.
Superintendent.
I don't have a report, but if you want me to jump into old business and just kind of set the stage, I will. Okay. First, I do want to, I've tried to applaud the board. I went out of my way to applaud an individual member who I thought spoke very well at the meeting that we had in December. I do believe the board did their due diligence and came with a budget that is appropriate and is what we need to successfully run this district as we move forward into fiscal year 26. I also know that several of the board members have talked to me and said that's for this year, and that we're gonna reassess next year, and hopefully things will be up. We have an app to fund transition to a different software platform in our business office, so there's been a lot of training that's gone on that. We've had several turnover in our business office, as you just saw. We have another one now. It takes a while to train people to get them up to speed to be able to do what that app to fund system does. Now, eventually, it will make the job easier. I hear about the Great Salt Bay leaving, and I hear these 44% of numbers, and I just try to caution that for the central office, it's, first of all, the students in many ways don't have an impact on central office. The work that central office does, with the exception of special education, is not really impacted by the number of students we have. It's the number of payrolls that we have to get out. It's the taxes that we have to make sure get taken out appropriately, main state retirement, things of that nature. So central office did not lose 44%. We lost 1 of 6. Because we now have 5 that will still be payrolls and groups that will still be working with. So we didn't lose 44%. Now, you may say, I just said that the students impact special ed. They do, but it's not apples to apples. And the vast majority of our high need special ed students are not at Great Salt Bay. So the students that we still have are demanding a considerable amount of attention from our special ed department. We also have a significant shortage of special ed teachers. So those special ed administrators are also assisting in buildings that you wouldn't normally have your special ed people doing. So that's just another strain on that particular department. Getting back to what I said, at the vote in December, the article, it did not pass. I don't want to say voted down. It did not pass. It was a 24-24 tie after 3 different counts of the vote. And then at the end, it was requested that the budget get voted down so that we could come back and do what we're doing here today. So what I'm advocating, similar to a couple of our board members spoke, that you keep the budget the way it is. That being said, I understand that people expressed a concern and they expressed a desire to see reductions. Peter and I have been looking at it since that meeting, and we've had conversations with our special ed department as well. We've identified $30,000 of cuts that we could make to this budget that would not impact staffing. If we go beyond $30,000, it's people. And if we lose people, I'm extremely concerned about where that will put us. We may lose more people because of the workload, but I also worry about legal stuff that we may run into if we're not making sure the things that need to get done are getting done. So I put that, and I don't even want to put that 30,000 out, but I felt we have to come and show something. But that's really all we can cut until we get into positions. So what the board needs to do tonight, the board doesn't tell us where the cuts come from. You tell us what you feel is appropriate budget. And then if we do have to make changes, we will go back. Central office will make to get to the number that you have said you want. And then that's the budget that you will vote on the 14th. We can't sit here and talk about a position or something like that because it's a personnel matter. And we don't want someone hearing a video that they may not, have a job next year. So those are conversations I would have to have if in fact we go beyond that $30,000 number that I've shared with you. And do you want to add anything that I may have omitted?
I concur with all you said, Tom.
Are you able to show us where the 30,000 is? Or no?
Well, it impacts, we can, we can. It doesn't
The only
impact
reason I
staffing.
say
Yep.
that is if we decided to cut more, if we're still able to cut that 30, if there's something else we decide, or an amount we do decide, if that 30 may be used towards whatever we decide, see what I mean? And so that may reduce the number we're looking to get to, if there's already 30 on the table, that things can be moved.
I think I understand what you're saying.
You said,
Yeah.
I ain't wording it right.
Right.
I think I get what you're saying. I don't know,
So
Peter,
if
you
we
want to talk about
decide,
those
say we
30?
want a total of 100 cut.
Right.
They already got 30 in their head. Where's the 30? Right? That may change how we cut 100.
Matt, I think
If
what
that's the number.
Todd's saying is that he reserves the right to make the decisions. So
We can reserve the right, but if you know where it's being cut, it's up to us to know. Correct? Because it is not a position. So
100,
therefore we can know-
100 would be a position.
100 would, but
Yeah.
not 30.
Is the 30 an actual reduction in the budget, or is there a shift?
It's a
from
reduction.
local entitlement?
It's a reduction in the budget. Less money will be spent, no sources, whether public or federal or state grants, there's no increase. It's actual trimming of things that, just do a little less here, there, and I don't want to speak for Todd. Todd
Yep.
is holding.
That's the one that would bring it down to a 13% reduction, right? Is it that one? I'm not sure if it's that one. Does it say?
Well, when you're saying a 13% reduction, what you.
Last page.
What you're saying is that there is a 13% less.
Correct.
Expenditures.
Yep.
So you've reduced it from last year's budget that included everybody.
Yep.
From, which was 1.365 million. So now that with the $30-ish thousand taken out, a little more than 30, the budget would be 1,188,473.87 instead of 1,219,000. And that is less money collected from taxpayers, less money spent, no extra grants or anything, just absolute trimming around the edges.
And Peter, if you want to share, I'm fine if you share because you know them right off the top of your head with
Share
those.
where they're coming from?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the student staff support cost center, there's no changes to special ed. Special services cost center stays the same. In the student staff support cost center, there is a $5,000 reduction in the stipends for technology. That number was 61.4. Now it's 56.4. There is a $5,000 reduction in the ESEA coordinator, which is a contracted service that we had that was 25 and is now 20. So we're just going to make sure we get the work done that we can for 20 instead of 25. And then there is a $15,000 cut in superintendent health insurance. And the reason why that was there and was able to come out is that because you have that is the essentially the chief executive officer of your organization is a high value personnel and critical to you. If you were to lose the current superintendent who's only taking a single plan, I want you to have the funding to replace that person with somebody who might require the benefit you offer of a family plan. So I budgeted with just sound financial practices, the full benefit you offer, not what's currently being taken by the individual in that position. Given the circumstances, I've reduced it to what is actually being taken by the individual in that position.
Just need to keep me now.
15,000. And then another 5,000 was cut out of the business office fiscal salaries. That's for the 3 clerks that are in there. The recent change you heard about allows us to adjust the incoming person's salary. The person's leaving, he's been here for 10 years. And I'm able to reduce the total amount spent on that position only because of this letter that you have here. And so that adds up to just over 30,000 and a few $100.
And this resignation came really recently.
Yes. Yep. Last week. Thank you, Peter.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Since it was mostly Bristol and South Bristol that voted the budget down, what does Christian and June think should take place? You represent the public that was more largely represented there against the budget.
Well, against one particular aspect of the budget. It wasn't the budget as a whole.
Well,
But that's a moot point now.
okay.
So it doesn't, for my part, it doesn't need to be addressed. I guess the only comment I would have here, Peter, the potential cuts that you described, what would it have a material effect on the best possible functioning of the central office?
I think that the cuts here will allow us to function with fine, as well as we would have with the additional 30,000. The risk you run into is everything that Chuck seems to be concerned about, is having any kind of fund balance at the end of the year. And, the central office is cash management is getting harder and harder, because as you cut this thing closer to the bone, you run the risk of just some town doesn't has a problem in their office. They don't get us the check on the 20th of the month. We got to make payroll. And as we roll fund balances forward and cut out the extra health insurance and cut out $5,000 here and $5,000 there, you're not doing a service to your public cash fund. What you're doing is saving a little bit of money to make the job up, to make the fund balance roll a little slower. But if we probably hit the same number at the end of the year, because that 15,000 that we cut out, that would have been Todd's extra health insurance. Because once Todd sticks around, we don't need that.
Stay single.
That would have been your fund balance. That would have just gone your fund balance forward, And so as the closer you get to the bone, the more you're making it a risk for your actual cash plan. I just met with Fred Brewer this afternoon about one of the districts here, and that district currently has, in the neighborhood, we were just looking at it, I'm not going to bother to get the number exactly right, but somewhere in the order of $800,000 cash balance. And he said, we have to, in the audit, he's going to make a note to them that they would be better off getting that up over $1 million, to have $1 million undesignated balance in the bank. Because what a school district has to do is it might receive federal funds, but it's got to spend the money first out of its own pocket and then ask for it back. And that process can take months. If you have to do that, if I have to, front money to the stuff that's happening. For example, we receive a certain amount of funding for REAP grants, somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 a year. That's Regional Educational Achievement Program grants to pay for some of the expenses that are in addition to this, but aren't shown in this budget. So we don't show the full cost of something because it's being covered by a grant. We got to spend it first, and then we got to get the grant money back. We also can get a little bit of money back for a small percentage of the time we spend on the ESEA coordinator. We get just a few $1,000s. We got to spend it first and then get it back. So that process, the more you're asking me to shave this thing down to what's just going to squeak by, you're just you're putting yourself at closer and closer and closer to the edge of a problem. And that isn't about how much we spend. How much we spend, June, we're going to be able to do the job. It's about whether or not you just financially want to be that tight. And I understand. I have my own property tax bills in my own town. I have a huge mill rate. And I have sat in those chairs and said the things you guys want to say to me. I understand it 100%. But I also know what it means to get notifications from the bank that they have to go into they have to provide credit to you because you can't make payroll. And I don't know why we want to operate that way, when at the end of the year, your money isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to roll forward, and everybody's watching that. Everybody in this room and on the streets and reading the Lincoln County News is watching whether or not we're gonna roll that money forward at the end of the year. So you have plenty of internal controls to manage that. So the tighter you get this, you're not doing yourself a favor, whether it feels like it or not. But yes, we can do this job, June, if we cut out these edges. It's just a little bit, I'll be going into the bank more often and watching pennies.
So you're saying we wouldn't have a cushion?
We wouldn't have a cushion, but we can get the job done.
Right, but we would not have a cushion, which
Correct.
is not,
You get
which
close
is
to
not a fiscally sound.
Right.
What's your thoughts?
I wouldn't want to take anything more than that.
So you guys
I
are,
don't even like taking that.
okay. Well, what I heard at the public vote meeting was a motion to reduce the budget 20%. And from what we presented, and that was about $152,000. I could see the argument for reducing the budget 20% from last year's budget, because we've lost 1 out of 5 schools, which is basically 20%. And we're at about 11% now. And I think if we could,
13% if we do this.
the 13,
12.95.
12.95, sorry.
but that's still a long way from 20%. And so I'm gonna have to say I'm in favor of, we gotta get to 100,000. And whatever that position ends up being, that may put it over or under 100,000 a little bit, depending on how the 30 adds up to whatever the position is that you decide you would have to do. There's no way I'm going back to another public vote when it's pretty clear that the public's not in favor. If you go back with just a $30,000 reduction, I bet you'll have even more no votes there, because it's easier to get people out to vote no to save their taxes than it is like a school budget where you can get student population parents out to vote in favor of a school budget. Not many people are going to get out in favor of a administrative budget. So that being said, I guess, you know, my opinion is we gotta get to 100,000 somewhere. I don't care what. I'll leave it up to you to decide which cost center you think is the least impactful. But it's not something anybody wants to do, but that's what the public, I believe, wants as a whole in general. And keep in mind, when you go do your school budgets this spring, it's going to be the same crowd show up, and they're not going to be very happy probably. So hopefully we can get something here that we can work with, and you know, people will be a little more in favor of their school budgets, hopefully. So I don't know if you want to make a motion to move this forward that way, if you two would just be in agreement, or how you want to instruct the superintendent on that.
Well, that would require us voting on the 100,000.
Yeah, we would,
100 minimum.
yeah, we would vote on 100 minimum to come out of the budget, and then Superintendent Peter would go back, figure out where that's going to come from. They've already found 30. And on our meeting next week, the 14th, they would present a new budget with the adjustments they felt, and then we would approve that budget.
It's a pretty
For
crippling
public vote.
change to the AOS.
Well, I mean, I argued about one position based on student population numbers, one for the business department and one out of special ed, because conventional wisdom is you're losing that number of students, especially in the special ed side. That's a 38 production in special ed student population. You really got to get to 50% student population reduction to actually equal a position. But and with the business department, you could argue, you know, one less school there, that's reduced by 20%. But given the employment troubles and the APA fund and everything that's going on in the business department, this isn't the year that I would want to cut that position unless they think that's the least impactful place to do it. But we was gonna look at doing this next year anyway, and those two positions, and it seems to me that one has to be dealt with this year. So I guess I'll move to instruct the superintendent to come back with a new budget proposal that's $100,000 less than what we presented at the December 18th public vote.
I'd second it.
All in favor?
Want discussion, or you're just gonna go right to the vote?
Sure,
If
discussion.
there are more,
Let's do a discussion. I mean, if there is any.
if there is any.
I mean, I feel like it's a crippling, I said everything. It's crippling
I don't think it's
move, and
crippling, I just think is it gonna be rough? Yeah, but it's not crippling. Crippling is something that can't be done, right? It's doable, it's just rough doing it for the first year. And like Wayne said, we talked about cutting positions next year. It was already known that something was gonna go next year. Wanted Todd to be able to run through it this year, figure out how and where it best suited for him to run the office. Towns have kind of spoken and they don't want to wait a year.
Well, 24 people spoke,
And next time 100 could speak, next time 200 could
or
speak,
25.
right? But, you know, I think Wayne's right when it comes to that. Schools, you can usually get a crowd to come out and help out. When it comes to something like this, they don't, understanding the cost is harder.
I don't think it's that hard when you're talking about cutting a pretty important position that, you know.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
You haven't passed your motion yet.
No more discussion.
And I would like you to consider how you phrase your motion, because there's some information I'd like to share with you about how the budget works with the rest of the schools. In the FY25 budgets that we have right now for all the AOS, there is a budget of $1.365 million. And then the schools each raise another $212,000 of shared costs, okay? And that includes software purchases that we make that everybody shares. It includes some shared positions that are shared around the schools, et cetera. But it's $212,000. And I believe I can cut a significant amount of that that could contribute to this. It wouldn't come out of the AOS budget, but it'll come out of each school's budget, so that each of your schools is paying a lot less if I cut there. I can let go of things there that will have less impact on the functioning of the central office, but still achieve $100,000 in savings across the schools. And we have a meeting next week to look at how we're going to do this, and I'd be prepared to come in and evidence that that savings has been achieved in that way.
Well, I think the people would argue that they would just as soon see both.
I was going to say,
if that's a possibility,
you more or
because,
less just told our town that
because-
you can cut. in
right,
two
because
places.
they're basically two
I
separate,
intend to.
they're
I have
basically,
every intention of it.
they're basically two separate budget
There are things in there
issues.
that I think would be better saved for an executive session that would be significant decisions in how you staff everything that I think that you should consider before you talk about this. And I just feel like that there's a lot there that we don't get into when we only look at the general fund budgets, that I would like to help you here and save money.
You're talking general fund school budgets?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a totally separate issue. The motion here is to deal with this budget and leave the superintendent enough leeway within the whole budget to find that money versus trying to direct to a specific cost center on where that money should come out of, per se. And that's really, I think, the best we can do. They was asking for $152,000 extra reduction at the public vote. And
Wayne, with all due
To get to
respect, that
100.
was one person requesting that amount
yes,
among the entire
but the
room.
vote
Well, the vote was
didn't
tied.
pass, and it's
Right.
tight, and that's the way majority rules go. So, I mean, that's the process, the way it is.
I
And I
understand.
can tell you from experience, if you go back with a budget that's only $30,000 less, the vote will be overwhelmingly against the budget next time, because people are gonna be upset, and they're gonna call around, and they're gonna get people out, because they're gonna feel like you thumbed your nose at them by not reducing the budget significantly enough. And keep in mind, there's been large districts over the past couple of years all over the state that have not passed their school budget, some of them 2 and 3 times. And we haven't experienced that here, but we just had a taste of it on December 18th. And I got the message, at least what I thought the message was. Your interpretation of the message, I think, may be different, but, that's where I'm going with it, so.
Well, I think it was different. And I'm afraid I can't support
I
doing
understand that.
such a deep cut that it would have knock-on effects that could ultimately really hurt the schools.
I agree with June.
Good.
Any other discussion? So all those in favor of Wayne's $100,000 reduction for Todd to find $100,000?
I gotta catch this. Can you say what you said again? I forget, I'm supposed to be taking notes in this meeting.
Motion to instruct the superintendent to reduce the
You can keep going.
previous budget proposed to the public by $100,000. Minimum.
No further discussion, so all those in favor? All those opposed?
Point of information, clarification request.
So that's a
What?
61% vote and so we want to record the weighted vote on that.
There's a point of information.
What does a split vote mean?
It's weighted.
It's weighted.
Right, it's not a split.
It's not split, it's a weighted vote, and it's 61%.
Okay, so regardless of the split, what is the impact of not being able to arrive at that number? I just want to understand. I'm not trying to.
We did
calculate.
arrive to a number, 61% in favor of cutting.
I'm sorry, which number, meaning number?
No, I'm talking about.
He's talking about the
board's-
$100,000.
I'm asking about the board's further action based on tonight's vote.
So the superintendent's been instructed to cut $100,000 from the previously presented budget, and they will come back with at least $100,000 reduction in the budget. And then on January 14th, our next meeting, we will review that budget, find out where they made the cuts, and either approve that budget or amend it even more if we see a way
Okay,
to amend it.
Thank you.
And then that will go to the public.
Thanks for the clarification.
Transportation bids, new business?
So we put out an RFP at the end of November with the bids due back on December 27th for the transportation for the AOS, 4 schools of the AOS, for 10 buses to serve the 4 schools for the next 5 years beginning July 1st. We've received 2 bids back, and in your packages, you see the financial portions of their bids. And read it out loud to the public. The first student bid, which is the company that was awarded the contract 5 years ago. I'm not going to read every sort of, they put a lot of information into it. I'm going to tell you the amount of their first year running 10 buses for the AOS would be $862,000 and some, what is it?
862,997.40.
862,997.40, and then it escalates from there, and the fifth year is 1,088,000,
69.
69.
1,069,000,
103.60.
103.60.
They're roughly up 60,000, 50-something thousand dollars a year.
Now, you're currently paying about $75,000 per bus run, and next year, and they've been going up 3% a year to get to the number we're at right now, and it would jump up 15% this year, and then go up 6% after that. These prices that are in the contract that we're running now were set in an agreement 5 years ago, 2019. It includes fuel. And so we've been paying the same price since 2019 for labor and fuel. So it's not unexpected with 3% increases. But given the fact that we've had a couple of years of 10% inflation almost, you know, it was anticipated. In fact, when I started doing budgeting for South Bristol, the first budget before I headed back, I put in, you know, my own wild guess, 15%. And I was talking to some other business managers over the summer about what we all expected to see. And so the first student bid was 15% more, and that 862,000. We got another bid from Custom Coach. That bid for the first year was $1,210,400. So you know, $350,000 more. So there's a significant difference, an almost 40% jump from the one bid for the current company to the other. So from my point of view, it's pretty clear that one, they would certainly be more cost efficient, and we have a long and successful track record of working with that company. And it's my recommendation that you go with the first student bid.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? That being said, I need to now negotiate a contract with them, and I will present that to you at one of your future meetings. What I would like to do with the school committees between now and when I present you that contract is review the specific number of buses that each school will be running to get to that 10. Because there's at least one district that's considering changing that number. And I will work with each school committee to make sure that their portion of this is understood. Okay. And then when we meet on that reason why there's that special meeting on the 22nd is to finalize that contract right before the public.
The 5:30 meeting.
5:30 special meeting, because I need a couple weeks to get back and forth with these people. I don't want to promise that it's all going to get done by, you know, the 14th when we meet again. But when we meet the 22nd, I'll have a contract ready for you guys to vote on to approve.
Now, will that work when, say, said schools haven't decided how many they're cutting yet by that date?
There are provisions within the contract that talk about how you make those decisions and when. And there are deadlines for alerting them that you might cut a bus and that you are cutting a bus. And that's not some of the language. What I learned in the last contract that was done 5 years ago when I went to try to change the bus for Bristol was that they expected us to notify them by December 31st what the bus runs were going to be for July 1st the following year. That eliminates the opportunity for your boards and towns to discuss it through your public budget meeting. So I'm going to change that in this contract so we alert them by like April 15th of what the decision that came out of it was. That gives the opportunity to have like a March 20th public meeting. The budget might get defeated. You might have to come back and cut a bus on April 10th, but I got to let them know by April 15th.
So how will it work also? So by cutting buses, of course, it's not the full cost of the bus. So how does that get divvied?
So there's a part of the rest, there's a lot of numbers in here about what ifs. And one thing that happens is if you cut a bus, the other buses each go up a little bit. So you, right now, that first bus run, $86,000 for are you on the first student one? Please take a look.
Yeah, that's right.
So first student, the discounts per bus per day.
363 and they cost 484 a day.
Right. So you're basically still, your cost is going to go up 18. You're going to pay $2,000 more per bus run if you go to 9 than if you stay at 10. So, like if, say, South Bristol decides to cut its only bus, right? Because you found another way to get those kids to school. I'm just using you as an example because you're unlikely to do so. But if you were to cut that, everybody else's buses go up $2,000, but you save 86. Okay, so that's why it's an AOS decision. All right, but that's how it happens.
Also to ask in the contract is to stipulate how many hours a day we can use them.
I'll double check that. And but I'd like to know more from you about why that's an issue. I think, yeah.
Because if you can double up a bus run and it takes them 5 hours to do it, instead of only working for 2.5, but yet we can do it with one bus, right?
So let's drill into, I know this is what I wanted to
I
give
mean,
us
I
a
know
couple
this
weeks.
is separate from this a little
I think we're
bit.
getting into sort of a specific school's interests, and I'm happy, and I said I would do that with everybody. So that's why I want the 2 weeks to kind of drill into it with everybody, see what their concerns are. I know you have some good things you're thinking about doing. I'd like to help you with your next meeting with that.
Yeah.
And I'll be prepared to dive into the details.
I also want to make sure it's fair for all the schools. If a school does cut a bus, that it doesn't cost somebody else more.
I hear you. And what I'm asking for tonight is the opportunity to start working with First Student to get you those answers and to get them encoded into a contract correctly to everybody here's satisfaction. Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
So I do think you moved and voted that did you vote on that?
Yes.
We did. Okay, good. Just making sure.
Okay, if not, then without objection, the board chair, vice chair declares the meeting adjourned at 6:55.